using a Castle 1415 series motor. I think it's 2400 kV, so it's really not high RPM, being that this is normally used as a rock crawler. It's not geared to go very fast. It's geared more to provide torque. That is if you have a regular size spur on there. So to get good speed out of it, you have to run a smaller spur gear and a large pinion, kind of like the high-speed setups you see on a lot of the mama wrestlers. So I'm trying to do a similar setup here. It won't go as fast as a mama wrestler, of course. I'm looking to do, mid 40 mile per hour range with these tires. I think they're like 3.5 inch diameter, something like that. If that works out, I know 40 miles per hour or 45 miles per hour don't sound fast, but if everything works well at that speed, I'll try a different setup with larger tires and wheels that will give me higher speeds. So, baby steps. But the problem I've run into is I cannot fit as large of a pinion I want on there. This is a 26 tooth Mod 1 pinion, pretty good size. And this is an adapter, because this is a 5mm hole. The shaft on the motor is only 3mm, so you have to run one of these adapters. But anyway, I can slide this on the shaft only because the adapter is not on there. But it's kind of hard to see. Everything looks like it fits, but there's no room for me to run that adapter. And this motor is down as far as it can go on this stock motor plate. So I'm either going to have to modify this motor plate to extend the slot so I could move this motor further away from the spur to fit this pinion, or I'm going to have to find another motor plate that have longer slots. Only problem with that is this motor is almost bottoming out on this chassis, down at the bottom of the V. Kind of hard to see. So even if I do something with the motor plate to extend it out, the motor might not be able to physically move because it'll be blocked by the chassis. So in that case, I'm thinking of running spacers between the chassis and the motor mount, or the chassis and the transmission, to raise the transmission off of the chassis to give me more room so that the motor doesn't bottom out. The spur that I'm running right here, I believe this is the smallest spur I could find, and this is a 34 tooth Mod 1 spur. I think for the Nitro Revo, 3.3 Revo, or what have you. And this is a slipper clutch setup for Traxxas. This top shaft conversion is from Super Shafty, so you can find them online, supershafty.com. It got a lot of good Mad Force stuff for the coyotes from Mad Force, so that's how I came across them. But he got a good line of stuff. I did have issues with running the slipper on here. I kind of had to find some spaces to put in here to bring the back plate of the slipper from keeping it from rubbing against the motor plate. So can't remember the size bearing. I found an extra bearing I had. It was from one of my pan cars, but it did not have a flange, and it was able to fit in there. It didn't fit tight or anything, but just using it purely as a spacer. Now I was able to put a spring washer on top of there and then run this bearing that I normally believe is in here, run it on top of that, and the pin that goes through the shaft is right on top of the bearing. So this plate is just barely on the shaft, or the pin that runs through the shaft. I mean, it's all secure, but it gives enough room, and everything worked out that way, so that's all good. I just had this battery tray up right here because that's how I access the 4 screws for the transmission. That's the update on the Ridgecrest speed project, also known as SpeedCrest. So that's that. I'm able to put this in here because I was taking so long making this video, so this is bonus footage. Recently received this in the mail. It's a STRC aluminum motor plate. This motor plate includes the longer motor screw slots. I was able to move the motor away from the spur just enough to get the 24 tooth pinion mounted. I did go ahead and also add washers between the transmission and the chassis, so that did give me just that much more clearance between the motor and the chassis. So everything's looking good. Just need to mount drive shafts, servo, rest of the electronics, and it's getting closer to making this first run.